folks, today is September 11th, 2018. This is Roland Martin Unfiltered. Coming up on today's show, more suspicious information on that shooting in Dallas by an off-duty cop. We'll talk to the man organizing the protest to keep the heat on the city as well as the police. 17 years after 9/11, it has been a day of remembrance all across the country. We'll talk to a sister who lost her mother and how that day changed the direction of her life. Also, Hurricane Florence has led to 1 million people being ordered to evacuate the Carolinas. We'll talk with Paul Goodlow, a meteorologist with the Weather Channel, who is on the ground in North Carolina. Also, Democrats still treating black folks like political sharecroppers. A new report shows the lack of black people in top positions in the U.S. House. We'll talk with Spencer Overton for the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, who led that report. Also, not wearing any NFL gear like me. You want that Colin Kaepernick jersey, says I'm with Cap? Too bad. They went on sale yesterday, sold out in minutes. And also, Mario Van Peebles has a new movie out that deals with the issue of gun violence in America. It is called Armed. Yours truly plays a smooth-dressing, politically conscious barber. We'll talk with Mario right here. It's a packed show right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. It's time to bring the funk. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Folks, a major hurricane is on its way to the East Coast. It is called Hurricane Florence, packing winds 130 miles an hour. Some 1 million people already ordered to evacuate the Carolinas. A state of emergency has been declared in numerous states, including Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and others. We're talking about rain that could dump as much as 12 to 18 inches in these areas. Washington, D.C. also could be impacted anywhere from 4 to 8 inches. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser has already declared a state of emergency as well. The California Governor, Roy Cooper, calls this a monster, a vicious monster. Let's go right now, folks, to Paul Goodlow. He's a meteorologist with the Weather Channel. He's on the ground in North Carolina. Paul, your assessment of Hurricane Florence and what we are to expect.
Hurricane Florence appears to be off our now up to 100 miles.
Okay, so here's the deal. We're actually breaking up with Paul over Skype, so let's do this here. Let's take Paul off of Skype. Let's put him on the phone. I think we have a better connection. I want to come back to Paul in just 1 second. Let's go ahead and get that straight. But, folks, let me give you some details of how serious this is. Not only is it going to impact folks who are already being ordered to evacuate, what is also happening is you have prisoners who are being evacuated, although one particular county in the pathway, they've said they're not going to move any prisoners. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's 190 prisoners who are there. Also, it's going to impact college sports as well. You have a couple of football games involving HBCUs that have been moved. The Norfolk State game has been moved as well. Tennessee State and Hampton has been canceled and will not be rescheduled. Norfolk State and Liberty has been moved to December 1st. If Norfolk State makes the playoffs, that game is going to be canceled as well. All of a sudden, folks, what we're talking about here is significant potential for damage. The storm right now is about 800 miles off of the coast, but it is expected to make landfall late Thursday or even Friday. The danger zone is going to be really between Thursday and Sunday. Let's go back to Paul Goodlow. We have him on the phone. Sorry, the video was choppy, Paul. Give us a sense of what you're seeing and how are folks preparing for Hurricane Florence?
Well, Roland, I'm here in Morehead City, North Carolina. We're also under an evacuation zone here as well. And I kind of came in today. I saw a lot of people already. You know, we're talking 48 hours before landfall. They are making preparations. People are leaving town. Highways are packed. Grocery stores are packed. Lines still there?
Yeah, we're still here. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, lines of gas stations as well. So people are taking it seriously and they're getting on out of here. And you mentioned earlier 130 mile per hour winds, now strengthened to 140 mile per hour winds. So it's still a very dangerous Category 4 hurricane. Landfall time is basically people still have time today and into Wednesday to prepare. Thursday, weather starts going downhill. By sunset Thursday, you need to be where you need to be, which is basically above ground, above sea level, and, well, inland as well. Another big concern I've got, Roland, is all the rain. I mean, this could be like the North Carolina, South Carolina version of Harvey. And, you know Houston well. You know what happened last year. I'm not saying we're going to have 50 or 60 inches of rain, but some of the models are hinting at maybe 30, 40 inches. And I tell you what, last year with Harvey, some of the models had the same numbers, and they underperformed. We had widespread 55 inches of rainfall from this storm, and this one is supposed to stall out. So inland freshwater flooding is a huge concern. At the coast, North Carolina coast, Outer Banks, huge concern. Wilmington, Wrightsville Beach. But also now getting greater concern for the South Carolina coastline as well, because if this thing kind of stalls and kind of drifts to the southwest, where places like Charleston, initially in the forecast, they would have an offshore wind. They can go to an onshore wind, and that could cause a lot of flooding. They saw flooding a couple of years ago with Hurricane Matthew as well. So this is a huge threat for the Carolinas, a threat they haven't experienced in years in terms of how far this will be, how far inland, places like Durham and Greensboro, Charlotte, Raleigh, all could see a heavy rain there as well. Not to mention upstate of South Carolina, as well as the low country, could still see very heavy rain. So this is a combination. We have our wind threats at the coast, a little bit inland as well, maybe even a surge threat as well. But it's going to be the several days of rain, which could extend as far west as Atlanta, maybe an inch or two. But it's not just going to be in one day. It's going to make landfall sometime midday on Friday, and then not really wind down until the end of the weekend. So we're talking maybe a 2, 3, 4 day rain event in some locations.
Paul, also we're seeing that how is this going to impact our folks in Bermuda? Because this is a very large storm. We're talking about, obviously, how it's going to impact the United States, but the folks in Bermuda are sitting out there in an island. They're going to get battered by this storm.
The waves will. I mean, the coast, they'll feel that for sure, the big waves. But they had a disturbance there a couple of days ago, and Bermuda, they get their drinking water from rainwater. So they had some rain showers, which is good for their water supply. But Florence will get huge surf to Bermuda, but in terms of direct impact, they won't have it at all. So they're going to kind of slide by this one as Florence moves to their south. But the southerly or south-facing beaches will get some huge waves on the island, but no direct impact for Bermuda. That's good news there.
Paul, I have the weather channel, your website up, weather.com right now, and we're talking about, you talk about multiple states. And so as this storm moves forward, Charleston, South Carolina, Wilmington, North Carolina, Norfolk, Virginia. But see, and that's where they're expecting a direct hit. But as you begin to venture this thing out, you're going to have even multiple states who will feel the after effects in terms of wind, in terms of rain. Look, I was born and raised in Houston. I've gone through numerous hurricanes, and we've had situations where a hurricane hit in Houston, and then those winds, Dallas is 4 hours away, and you still felt 30, 40, 50, 60-mile-an-hour winds that distance away. And so we're talking about not just the Carolinas, but we're talking about a significant number of states on the East Coast.
Well, the big threat with the wind will definitely be Friday and Saturday. Saturday night and Sunday, the wind should die down enough where it's not going to be a huge wind threat. But right along the coast of North Carolina, it's going to be, wind's going to be a big concern. And here's the thing about the wind that people don't really think about. It's not so much how fast it's going, but it's what's blowing in that wind. So whenever I'm on location, I'm always worried about what's upwind for me, what could be taken in the wind and then blown my direction. I don't care if it's blowing 100 miles an hour. I don't want anything like siding or pieces of homes coming in that 100-mile-per-hour wind and knocking me upside the head.
And last thing, flooding. We've had lots of rain here in the DMV area in D.C., Maryland, Virginia for the past couple of weeks. And so with the ground already saturated, I mean, if you get all of a sudden 4, 5, 6, 8 inches of rain, flooding is going to be real.
And many places will see maybe 5, 6, 7 times that amount of rain. Roland. But the good news is I think the heaviest rain won't fall right there in the mid-Atlantic, Delmarva, although you'll see maybe some areas 5-6 inches because the rain continues Saturday, Sunday, and Monday before things finally start drying out. And all the moisture gets pushed back out to the Atlantic by say the beginning of next week. But we have a long period of flooding after landfall. So I know people are kind of caught up in where exactly when that center will hit, but these hurricanes aren't single points. They are huge machines, and they're going to transport a lot of heavy rain well inland, well to upstate parts of North Carolina, upstate of South Carolina, into Virginia, into the D.C. area, Baltimore, places like Ellicott City, who has had devastating flooding a couple months ago. They could see that too if we get the wrong band set up at the wrong time over the wrong real estate. And we've already seen so much rain the last couple of weeks that it won't take much more to cause flash flooding. And we have that potential from, I'd say, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, southward, right on through parts of Tennessee, into parts of northern Georgia as well. So it's a huge concern, from the surge at the coast, from the wind at the coast, to the rain well away from the coast. We're going to be talking about Florence for maybe close to a week from now.
All right, then. Paul Goodlow, meteorologist for the Weather Channel. We'll be watching your coverage on the Weather Channel. We certainly appreciate it. Stay safe.
Thank you.
All right, folks, let's turn our attention to Dallas, where the stories around the shooting death of Botham Jean in Dallas keep getting weirder and weirder. Jean was, of course, home in his own apartment when Dallas police officer Amber Geiger shot him dead. Now, the Texas Rangers, they are conducting the investigation. They released an arrest affidavit that contradicts witness statements. Yesterday, of course, we had Lee Merritt, who the family hired as one of their attorneys, where he talked about those particular witnesses. The affidavit says that Geiger went to the wrong apartment on the wrong floor, thinking it was her own. She tried to open the door, say that the door was ajar, and she pushed it open with her key, issued some verbal commands, and then that's when she shot Jean. Now, again, Lee Merritt said at a news conference that they have two witnesses that have told them they heard knocking on the door in the hallway before the shooting. One witness reported hearing someone say, a woman's voice saying, "Let me in, let me in." Joining us right now from Dallas is Minister Dominique Alexander, founder of Next Generation Action Network, which organized protests there in Dallas. Dominique, good to see you again. This is an unbelievably crazy story. Surely folks in Dallas are saying, what is this officer talking about? She parks on the wrong floor. She goes to the wrong apartment. First, she says she tried to unlock it with her key, but then the door was ajar. I mean, at what point are we going to actually get a real story here?
I think there are major complications with her story from the beginning, from that night. I think that when we first started, we saw that she said that she went into the house. She thought it was her own house. And just the Texas Rangers, since they've been here, I think with their stall tactics, they have tried to find a way in order to cover this up. And the community is really not confident in the ability in what's going on inside Dallas and investigation.
Dominique, I got to ask you this here. I'm looking at the Dallas Morning News story where the police chief of Dallas, hear me, go to my iPad, please. The police chief of Dallas orders review after Dallas cop caught on video shooting pepper balls at Botham Jean protest. The chief is saying is not quite understanding. She's an African-American woman, who's the chief, not quite understanding why they were used. Quote, "I'm concerned to learn the reports that one of our officers deployed potentially several pepper balls during a demonstration last night." What's going on there? I mean, are these cops, do you believe, trying to protect her as opposed to get to the truth of what happened to Botham Jean?
Well, no. Last night we was having a demonstration, and when we turned the corner, there was there were about 5 officers that deployed a pepper spray, and one of them actually shot it to the ground. And at the there was many people that was out there at the protest. Dr. Freddie D. Haynes, local person leader, Diane Ragsdale, and the pepper spray got in our eyes. The Chief U. Renee Hall was not there. She later found out she was actually traveling to Austin and traveled back and found out that some type of force was used out there, which almost turned the protest into where rage were given, and there was a real big standoff with law enforcement. So our community thanked Chief U. Renee, apologizing about it, and we met with her office today, ways that we can do it better where that doesn't happen. Tensions rise up in the middle of protests.
Gotcha. Well, Dominic, look, we certainly appreciate you joining us, giving this perspective. We'll certainly keep our eyes on this story because, again, it's just shocking to see and hear of these multiple stories she's been given that totally contradict what she said on that particular night and also how she has been treated thus far by this investigation. So we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
All right, folks. Today is, of course, September 11th, the 17th anniversary of the deadly terror attacks that led to nearly 3,000 people dying and also changed this nation forever. Lots of images and stories from those days. And, of course, African Americans were also killed on that particular day, not only in the tragedy on those airplanes and also in the World Trade Center, but also as first responders. Now, one story we want to tell you about is about Paula Edgar, who lost her mother, Joan Donna Griffith, in the South Tower of the World Trade Center. Now, that event changed the course of her life, and she joins us right now to talk about this day as well as her mother. Paula Edgar, welcome to Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hi, Roland. How are you?
It is good to see you, but even unfortunately on this sad day, even though it's been 17 years, for you, what happens as you approach September 11th? Because unlike losing a loved one, and it's just losing that loved one, in many ways, this is having to deal with this with not only 3,000 folks who killed and those families and other people who have been impacted. I mean, you're a part of really an international tragedy.
Mm-hmm. So it varies year by year. I will say that when it was more recent, it was a lot harder to deal with the approach, but I constantly understanding the impact that has occurred in terms of how we approach the day different. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback.
Yeah, so we're having a slight issue with your Skype. So what I want our folks to do is just to tighten it up and then let me know if we're straight in terms of with the Skype. And so if y'all can let me know to make sure that her Skype is fine, I'll continue our conversation. Okay, so you can hear me now, Paula?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay.
I can also hear them.
Okay, gotcha. And so this is, of course, there were events taking place in Pennsylvania, in New York City, in Washington, D.C. as well. For you, going back to that day, what happened for you? What did you go through? Were you able to talk to your mother that day? Or was it the last time you actually communicated with her?
So I was living in California when 9/11 happened. I was 3,000 miles away from her. But my mother and I, every single day, and that was in the day when you had to use, 800 numbers to dial to get, and everything else was long distance. I had 800 numbers. I had access to speak to her every day. And in fact, the day prior to 9/11, on September 10th that year, the very last thing she said to me was, "If you don't love him, don't marry him." And
Wow.
at that point, yes, at that point I was engaged to someone who I did not know, and I was not. So those were the final words that she was able to give, and I took that 100% to heart in terms of that. The next day she was gone. Your question, how we approach September 11th, is it varies on the year, right? Because I share September 11th with everyone.
Right.
Our family shares this. And so because of that, I understand that it's not a legacy for my mother, but the legacy of being a victim of a historic event, of course, American history.
So when you say it changed your life, this is my last question. How did it change the direction of your life?
Sure. At the time my mother was killed, I really wasn't sure what I was going to do with my life. After she said to me, "If you don't love him, don't marry him," immediately ended my engagement. And after coming back to New York, I decided that I was going to become an attorney. The families that I work with, or the attorneys that we work with, families' grief were instrumental in us being better. They helped us build victims' compensation fund and my mother's will and estate. And from there, I decided that I wanted to be able to help people becoming an attorney.
Well, Paula, we certainly are sorry for your loss. It has been 17 years. No one ever gets over losing a loved one, especially their mother or their father. And so we certainly thank you for joining us to honor her memory.
Thank you so much for having me today.
All right, thanks a bunch. I want to introduce our panel now. Of course, we have Tiffany Lofton, who is the head of the Youth and College Division of the NAACP. Also, Spencer Overton, head of the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, and also head of the Urban Conservative Project, Liz Copeland, who joins us via Skype. And so glad to have all of you here. Just for Tiffany and Spencer, this is, again, one of those days that I don't care who you are, if you were alive at that time, you remember exactly that day, the moments you went through, especially if you lived in New York City or Washington, D.C.
Right. And so I think that's why it's so important to talk to Paula, to put a human face on it. There's so many political things in terms of who we're going to get back and what's the strategy and that kind of thing. But there is a real human loss here in terms of Paula and her mother, and just having empathy for that is incredibly important.
I remember, if I think about it right now, I was sitting in my AP history class in middle school, and my teacher got the intercom announcement about what took place at the 9/11 in the Twin Towers in New York, and he turned on the jumbo. We didn't have flat screens back then. I'm acting like I'm older than both of y'all, but we had the jumbo thick TVs. And they immediately turned the news on, and we watched the second plane go into the second tower. And being in middle school and I was in Los Angeles, California at the time, not recognizing how bad it was or what exactly was going on or happening, and then realizing or knowing that this is families that have lost their loved ones. This is friends who have lost their loved ones. This is partners who have lost their loved ones. And thinking about all the catastrophes that have happened since 9/11, because there have been a lot of them. Just like you said, Spencer, it's really important to make sure we paint a picture and tell the personal stories of folks who have been directly impacted and affected, because it's not just American history. People's lives are actually being impacted.
Liz Copeland.
Yeah, I recall the same thing, seeing the second plane going into the tower and thinking that it was a loop, that maybe they were replaying it and fully, getting the gravity of the situation. But I just want to talk about the aftermath. At that time, as a country, we really came together. But the images that I can see were, of course, first responders running into the building and, police officers. But to have a woman of color to also be associated with this event, this tragic event in our nation's history, is really important, because to me, it symbolizes, especially at that point in time, how we were all Americans. And while I am certainly not saying that we want to feel how we felt during that time, but afterwards, we believe that we should be concerned and take care of our neighbors. And I don't believe we have those same sentiments in 2018. I certainly am not arguing that we need to have a terrorist attack on our soils to prompt us to get back to that point, but I do remember that time.
Well, one of the things that also, when you talk about on this day politically, it was startling to have to wake up today. And the first tweet from the President of the United States is complaining about Russia.
Right.
And obviously somebody said, dude, it's 9/11. And so a few minutes later, it's the second one. But you're sitting here going, so I mean, how weak are you that on this day, when it shouldn't be about you?
It's not all about you.
Right.
That's right. It's not just about you.
Yeah.
And it's just,
what's upsetting about that and what's irritating is that I've over the fact that it's about that he thinks that it's about him. I'm more concerned about the people that are around him that don't check him or have no power or no influence over him to say, hey, don't forget tomorrow morning is 9/11.
Right.
Your first scheduled tweet, because we schedule tweets nowadays. We don't just do off of impulse like 45 does. And so somebody should be able to tell him the night before, hey, your first tweet tomorrow, it's 9/11. It's been 17 years. Let's make sure that we acknowledge the families and loved ones. And someone who claims to be so about pro-American and so about patriots and so about the war and so about everything, someone who you would think would be the first #1 champion to say, you taking a knee, but I'm going to tweet about 9/11 and the families that were lost. Like, his mind is completely gone, but his staff and his team weren't smart enough to tell him this morning, hey, your first tweet should be about 9/11?
And Liz, even go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, I mean, to Tiffany's point, I think it is reflective of our president's tone deafness. But I do want to push back on the staff that are in the room. I would argue that they're not stupid and that they know very well what the expectation is, what the tone is that should be coming out of or reflected in the president's statements and his, whether it's through Twitter or through his spokesperson, that it should be focused on this day as a day in honor and memory of those people who lost their lives and everyone who was impacted by this. But he is unchecked. And that's one of the things that's fearful about this president. While he might have people in the room who know better, who are going to advise him to do better, he doesn't have to do better because there's no one who has, especially in his position, more power and more authority than him.
Well, I just think it's, I mean, again, it's pretty much childish, but that's what we can certainly expect from the one sitting in the Oval Office. And again, I keep saying I can't call somebody president if you can't even respect the office yourself. He's also getting lots of criticism along with his wife Melania for posting images of themselves about 9/11. It's like you're using a photo and also using a photo from last year. And so, I mean, goodness, you think you could use an image of the World Trade Center or whatever.
Anything.
But again, but this is sort of what we have to deal with and expect here in this country. All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. When we come back, we're going to talk about this new report from the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies that details the lack of black folks in top positions in the House. Democrats, what's up with y'all treating black folks like political sharecroppers? Oh, yeah, I'm going to explain that when we come back right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Human dignity is more precious than prestige. Author Claude McKay.
All right, folks, here is the lead headline in this new report detailing the hiring of staff in the U.S. House of Representatives. New report finds people of color nearly absent from top staff positions. Now, you might remember, of course, last year we talked about the United States Senate and their lack of black folks being in top positions. Other findings of this report, the American public, more likely to elect a person of color to the House than members are to hire top staff of color. Of 329 white members of the United States House, 16 have chiefs of staff of color. More Republicans than Democrats. Over a quarter of members represent diverse districts but have no top staff of color. No Latinos hold top positions as well. Spencer Overton, you, of course, head of the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies. And so this is, so explain, Republicans have more top staffers of people of color than Democrats.
More top chiefs than Democrats.
Chiefs of staff.
Chiefs of staff. That's absolutely right. And a big issue here is white Democrats in particular, right? The bulk of the top staff who are black come from the CBC. So like 85% of the Democrats' top staff comes from CBC members. But if you look at white Democrats, only 2% of their top staff is black. Now just, you know, think about this. 21% of Democratic voters are black folks, right? And so there's a reliance on black voters, but very few top staff are black for white Democrats.
And this is precisely why, Tiffany, they have to be called out and put on Front Street and challenged. And I use the phrase political sharecroppers for a reason, because what they want is they want black folks, just like white plantation owners did, wanted us to till the land, work the land, deliver the crops, but then don't want to pay. And so Democrats want to get votes, want us to get out there and campaign and deliver them to the promised land. But when it comes to getting contracts, when it comes to getting jobs and opportunities, it's okay, we'll see you later.
Right. Well, what's interesting is, one, not only were Republicans more likely to have people of color who were chiefs of staff, it was only 10. I saw the number for Democrats is only 6.
Right.
So that's 16 people that are chiefs of staff, and that's not a lot at all when you talk about the House.
Folks, yeah.
For white folks, when you talk about the House at all. We're not talking about black folks. We're talking about people of color.
People of color, that's right.
That's another thing. I wonder what the gender demographic of this looks like, right?
So interestingly, 61% of black top staff are women. With Latinos, it's about 45% of women.
Okay.
It's about 25% in terms of Asian Americans.
Yeah, see, and so when I think about those numbers, which is really alarming to me, because I think about the folks who are actually doing the work of connecting with the constituents on the ground, those folks need to represent and come from those communities. And a lot of those communities that we're talking about are people of color.
And those white Democrats, they're not in all white districts, right? So the average white Democratic district is 37% people of color, right? But they just have very few people of color in top positions.
Liz, you would think that this is a story to tell for Republicans, but even they can probably screw that one up. And this, but this goes to, again, what happens in our politics where black people, and again, for anybody who's watching, I need you to understand how all of these things are connected. What happens is, if you're not getting these top positions among these positions in the House, what then happens is you're not then getting the jobs after you leave Congress. So when it comes to lobbyists, when it comes to PR shops, when it comes to all of these particular places, you're not getting any of these jobs. And so we're frozen out of those opportunities, which is how we're able to build and create wealth.
Right. I couldn't agree more. And so when I looked at the actual study when it came out of the members of the House, it was those who had districts that were 33% black, and you know the breakdown there. But as a black Republican, I'm looking at this report and I'm looking up Will Hurd in Texas 4th, or Will Hurd in Texas 23rd, Mia Love in Utah's 4th, and they are both African American Republicans. Both of them the first black Republicans from their respective states to actually make it to the House, and they were not on the list. And so then I looked at the areas that they were representing to see if, well, you know, what are the demographics of those areas? And both are coming from majority white districts. And so there could be an argument made that they're going to have individuals in their staff that's going to be reflective of the district, but I don't buy it. Being a double minority, you know, a minority in my political group and often a political minority in my ethnic group, I think it's incumbent upon black Republicans to make sure, to your point, Roland, that black Republicans are in the chief of staff position, because they're the ones that are tapped to be able to go to these foundations, to these lobbying firms, these law firms. And we need, I've always said it, we not only need representation, but power in both parties. And you can get to that party, you can get to that power either through the elected official role or as a chief of staff or as a thought leader and be in the room. And so I think they failed, specifically Congressman Will Hurd and Congresswoman Mia Love.
Well, here's the thing that we have to understand right now, and that is with the elections that we've seen take place, when January comes, you're going to have more than 50 members of the House Democratic Caucus who are in the Congressional Black Caucus. The largest, the CBC is the largest caucus on the Democratic side. And it's telling that if they can't find black people, and and look, I'm not saying people of color, okay? I'm saying black people. You can't, and also, first of all, define top positions. So chief of staff,
legislative director, communications director, right there. But then also staff directors for committees. And then we looked at the leadership offices like Pelosi's, et cetera, chiefs of staff, policy directors, and communications directors. So
okay, so on the Democratic side, for Nancy Pelosi. What they got?
So now she does have a communications director who's African American.
Steny Hoyer.
No.
Joe Crowley.
No. Also Steve Cohen, Tennessee, Memphis. No black, no of color top staff.
Wow. Clyburn is obviously in leadership.
Yeah, he is in leadership, and he has Yebby, in terms of chief of staff, so he has a person.
And again, and I know somebody at home is thinking, look, okay, that's all political. No, they don't understand.
Why it matters.
When you start talking about jobs that are paying, not just jobs that are paying six figures, but also when they go hire somebody who's a top staffer, they then hire them and then come set up their offices. They now can then hire 10, 15, 20, 30 people. And then if you don't have any people of color, any black folks, you're never going to get those kind of jobs.
And they also help decide what's the priority of the office is going to be sometimes as well, right? So when my student organizations have actually gone and done lobby visits, we're not usually meeting with the Congress member when they can't meet. We're talking to the legislative director or we're talking to the chief of staff person. And so when I think about that role, it's like, well, how much agency, and I'm not making the color of your skin synonymous with the priorities that you're going to have, because we've seen that be different too, and not always be be on our side. But it's important for us to think about what are the opportunities that are being shown up for people of color in high positions and high offices in our government that are not just elected officials, but those who actually make those decisions.
Spencer, then Liz.
Yeah. The CBC, though, is
carrying... Liz, 1 second. Go ahead, Spencer,
then Liz. The CBC is carrying Democrats in terms of diversity. So
no shot.
53% of CBC's top staff is black. And you compare that to 2% of white Democrats' top staff being black. So CBC has a healthy number of top staff who are black.
Liz?
Yeah, I know this is timely with the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation Annual Legislative Conference. I know that this is timely, but Spencer, I'm really interested to know what's going on in the Senate. Are you guys doing any data and research on that?
Yeah, we did do a report on the Senate, and we found that there was very little diversity on the Senate side. So on the Senate side, it's about 7% of top staff are people of color. On the House side, about 13% of people of color. But see, always the assumption was there's no problem in the House because you got the CBC, you got the CHC. But there is a problem when you say that people of color make up almost 40% of the population in this country, but they're only just over 13% of top staff. There is a problem.
What's next?
So the next piece will be focusing on this fall in terms of November and after November. There will be a lot of openings. And how do we get people to hire both top staff of color and then also mid-level staff of color who can move into those top positions?
All right, let's go to our next story, folks. Colin Kaepernick, of course, is still being talked about. Nike, of course, released their Just Do It commercial. He is the face of their 30th anniversary campaign. Kaepernick, of course, who has not played in the NFL since 2016. Last year, his jersey was still in the top 50 of all jerseys, player jerseys purchased. The folks were buying his San Francisco 49ers number 7 jersey. Well, instead of buying that jersey, Kaepernick actually released his own. It's a black jersey, the number 7. It is called I'm with Cap. You see it right there. It is all stitching. The adult jersey is $175. The junior jersey is $100. He put it up on his site yesterday. Then this happened. Out of stock. They sold out literally within minutes. Now, all the earnings will be sent to his Know Your Rights Camp, a free campaign for youth funded by Kaepernick, intended to raise awareness on self-empowerment and interacting with law enforcement. And so, and in fact, if you on Instagram, T.I. posted under that, he said, Cap, when you get some more, I need 12 dozen. Do the math, y'all. That's 25 grand worth of jerseys. And so I was texting Colin Kaepernick that last night about this. I was like, because I've been asking him for 3 months, like, dude, where's the jersey? Because I'm not wearing Houston Texans gear. Right. And he's like, man, the jerseys are coming. Jerseys are coming. And literally, he sends me the text. He's like, man, they all gone. I was like, bruh. I'm like, bruh, what's up? Like, where are the jerseys? Right. You know, but to sell out is real good. And also, just so y'all know, so get a shot of this. And so this here, of course, is an art piece. Just so y'all know where we stand here, and see if you can get a shot of that. The art piece on the wall. And so I was presented that particular art piece yes, I know I'm throwing y'all a curveball. Yes, I am. Milton Bowens, y'all, did that art piece that's on the wall there. He's in Sacramento. I gave a speech there for Mayor Kevin Johnson. And this was a piece that he actually did just for me. And as you can see, he has, of course, John Carlos and Tommy Smith, Muhammad Ali, their images, and, of course, Colin Kaepernick as well. And so we have that hanging here in the office. Now, what's interesting also, there's some conservative university that announced that, again, they're not going to allow any Nike gear. And I had, of course, I had to tweet homeboy. Liz, go ahead. It's amazing to me. You got the mayor in Louisiana, and I got to pull up again this guy who's a conservative president of this university, saying, oh, we're not going to have Nike gear because how they're disrespecting the troops. I guess he never heard of hashtag Veterans for Kaepernick.
Right. I think look, the conservative university, the mayor sending out a memo to his Rexham Park or something along that saying that we are not to buy any Nike paraphernalia. It's just, at this point, I think it doesn't bode well for conservatives who, present themselves as being constitutionalists and defenders of your First Amendment right. opposed to Colin Kaepernick exercising his First Amendment right and saying what he feels and being passionate about that. At this point, I think we really need to move beyond the conversation and this whole up or down about whether he was disrespecting the flag or disrespecting, the armed forces, and kind of really move beyond, how we can resolve the issues that he was bringing attention to, which is police brutality. And I know, we're supposed to be talking about.
But they don't want to do that, Liz. They don't want to have that conversation because what they want, because they don't even want to own up to the fact that every time a police officer who has beaten somebody, who has brutalized somebody, there's an American flag that's on their uniform. They don't even want to own up to that. It's on their uniform, and they're doing it under the color of the law.
Right. I mean, look, there's no defense there for the hypocrisy that you can see. The reality is, as a conservative, I believe that he has the right and he should exercise his First Amendment to speak out when he sees injustice. And I think that, you're just being a hypocrite when you say that he shouldn't have done that. And Nike, I say it again, they not only made a business decision to bring him in on that campaign, but they also are saying publicly that we support this social justice issue. And they're going to fare. I just think it's ridiculous that people are burning their shoes and everything that's related to it.
They're stuck on stupid.
The right to decide.
Spencer, go ahead.
And Liz, the hypocrisy is not just the First Amendment piece. It's this notion of, let's say, being a libertarian and being free from state oppression, and this notion of sanctioning violence against black folks, this notion that we are going to block out that black lives have value, right?
We're going to block that up. Extension, Spencer. They didn't say anything about black lives not having matter. What they said was, this is a company that supports a message that they don't agree with.
Who is they? Because I heard that multiple times.
No,
who is they? Because I've heard that multiple times. And my issue is this: we think about how the movement for Black lives and how organizers and civil rights organizers have been doing this work for a very long time. We saw the fluke and whack march that took place with white supremacy here in D.C.
Right.
It didn't go the way it was supposed to go. Colin Kaepernick sold out of his jersey in less than a couple of hours. That's a sign. We are electing black people and people who represent people's voices in the primaries this year, and the movement is currently working, and people are upset, salty, and mad about it, and I don't care.
Speaking of salty, this guy who's the president. This guy who's the president of Truett McConnell University, again, it's conservative university, Emir Caner. He goes, so his university, we're no longer going to be wearing any Nike gear. America has sacrificially given my family the freedoms we enjoy today. My wife, who was raised under the oppression of socialistic communism, became a citizen 5 years ago, joyfully pledging allegiance to these United States and her flag. Then for Nike to then hire Colin Kaepernick, a person known for wearing pigs on his socks, mocking law enforcement, kneeling against our flag, and mocking our troops is reprehensible to my family and to the Truett McConnell family. But I've never seen Emir Caner say anything about police brutality.
And that's the issue.
I've never seen him join a Jim Wallace or Father Michael Flager or other white ministers standing up for folks who are being beaten. They call themselves pro-life, but they say nothing when somebody's life is being taken who was shot unarmed by a cop. So I'm like, I don't want to hear their BS.
Yeah, there is no acknowledgement in that statement that you just read about black life.
Right. I mean, of course, because they're not going to say that.
Yeah.
So, Liz, your final comment on this topic.
I just restate that they have the constitutional right to be as ignorant as they choose to be and to have actions that are just, I think, stupid related to burning Nike equipment. And we should continue to respect and honor Colin Kaepernick's decision to exercise his rights to speak out on injustice.
All right, folks. We're going to go to a break right now. When we come back, we're going to talk about with Deborah Owens, America's wealth coach, Kevin Garnett. How in the hell did you lose $77 million? You ain't know what your money people were doing? Deborah Owens will explain to you what you need to do to ensure you protect and look out for your money. Back on Roland Martin Unfiltered, just a moment. All right, folks, our HBCU Giving Day University is Florida A&M University. They're in Tallahassee, of course, the home of Andrew Gillow, of course, who is...
and Mechanical University, October 3rd, 1887. What? Just checking. Just checking.
Are you done?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay, thank you. If you want to support Florida A&M with all that, hope you send a damn check with all of that. If you want to support Florida A&M, go to famu.edu to support Florida A&M. They are HBCU Giving Day School of the Day. All right, folks. Hall of Fame basketball player Kevin Garnett is suing an accountant and his firm, saying that they helped a financial manager steal $77 million from him. The federal malpractice suit alleges that the accountant and his firm made it possible for Charles Bank of Atlanta to defraud Garnett through businesses in which Garnett and Banks shared an interest. It also says Banks was helping himself to millions of dollars of Garnett's money, and the accountant did nothing about it. But that's not the big story here. How in the hell does somebody take $77 million and you ain't got a clue? Well, rapper Master P had a couple of words to say about that on his Instagram page. Press play. All right, y'all. So good. The computer froze there. We'll try to get it straight. Master P basically said, how you not know what you were doing? He said, you're supposed to have accountants to look after the accountant to look after the accountant. He said, like Biggie said, lawyers looking after lawyers after lawyers. Joining us right now is America's Wealth Coach, Deborah Owens. And so, Deborah, now, there are people out there who like, look, I ain't got $77 million. But there are people who literally entrust their retirement, other investments to a money manager and not really paying attention to what's going on, saying they're the expert.
Yeah, you know, I always say that ignorance is expensive. And the fact is, Roland, that the average person, when they pull out their retirement account statement or their investment account statement, they don't actually know what they're looking at. And so, you know, here are a few tips. If you look at Kevin Garnett, his situation, the bottom line is your accountant had the money, but where was the money being held? So here's a clue. You want to make sure that if you have an advisor of any kind handling your investments, that those funds are held in an investment account and that you can actually check it on your own by calling the investment company. And typically it is also insured if it's in an investment account by the Securities and Investor Protection Corp, which insures your account. You know, certainly not up to $77 million, but it is insured to a certain point. So the key here, like if you look at even Madoff, how he was able to kind of swindle all those investors, it was because they were making phony statements. And so, again, make sure that your statements are held at an investment company and that you can check those balances without having to go to your advisor.
And when we say check, again, don't just say, oh, you gave me a sheet of paper. No. I want to be able to go look myself at my stuff, and I want to be able to check it at any time without having to get your permission to know how much money I got in my account.
That's right. And another thing, I think what so many people get tripped up on is what is a financial advisor and what are their designations, right? So there are two places that you can go no matter how much money you have to find out about your advisor and whether or not he's got any kind of complaints or, you know, sometimes they can be barred from the industry and you not know it. So the first website I want to give out is called FINRA.org. And so that's the financial regulatory who basically keeps track of all licenses for advisors if you have a securities license. The second, and you can go to right on their website, it says broker check, and you can literally just put somebody's name in there. You can put my name in there and you'll know exactly how many investment companies I was with and how many I was with, right? The other resource that's great is typically you're also regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. So you can go to sec.gov and get that same information. Now, here's when it gets a little tricky, though. Like if you have a registered investment advisor, typically they're regulated by individual state, and where that regulatory body is located in each state can be different. So, you know, just go to your state's website. Sometimes it can be whatever the organization that handles consumer protection, or it's the state attorney's office if you want to find out about an advisor. But here's the bottom line, Roland, is, you know, the best way to find a financial advisor is to get referrals from other people, and that advisor should have some kind of track record and be able to show you how they've helped other individuals.
Yep.
But last but not least, Roland, is that you need to have a basic understanding of what a mutual fund is, what a stock is, and what kind of rate of return a particular investment has had in the past, and be able to analyze and research something and not just rely on somebody to take care of your money. The only person that's going to take care of your money is you.
All right, then. Deborah, where can folks reach you for more information?
Well, they can go to my website, deborahowens.com, and I want to invite people. I've got a free workshop. Take that workshop and learn the new rules of wealth so you can get smart about your money and not get taken like some of these athletes.
That is a wise thing. Deborah Owens, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot. All right, folks, y'all. Friday, a new movie is going to be opening. Mario Van Peebles is the director. It is called Armed. And here is the trailer of the movie. When we come back, we're going to talk to Mario Van Peebles.
You know, I don't see what is wrong with loving and respecting your wife.
Amen. I've been loving and respecting my wife for 18 years. Even my girlfriend knows that.
Turn the TV up.
There's been another mass shooting today.
I take a lot of heat where I say guns, you gotta have them.
This sort of thing just seems to be happening with more and more frequency.
Man down! We need backup!
Chief, you need to see this.
Get out now! Something happened to us in that raid, Chief.
We were exposed to some sort of chemical. Here we go. We're just gonna go down the dark hole of conspiracy theories.
This mission requires that we stay cool. Cool breeze, baby.
We do not recognize the federal government.
They're gonna recognize you. We don't know who's messing with our heads. We're just looking for some answers.
Are you off your meds?
I did a little bit of research on you. A lot of people think I'm like a ticking time bomb. Other people say, hey, look, this guy is a public hero.
All I can tell you is killing those bad guys felt like the right thing to do.
How's this crazy fool gonna know who's the bad guy? They're messing with our Second Amendment, Chief.
I'm an American. I have the right to bear more arms than anybody on this planet.
You got a gun!
You're crazy.
I'm sorry.
Boobs or booty?
Booty?
Don't write no check with your mouth, your ass can't catch, huh?
Oh my God, you have to see this. Uncle Jason is trending.
That's coming to you from Mr. Jason Pratt.
That's my custom-tailored suit.
According to him, he's one of the good guys.
All right, y'all. Joining us right now is the director, Mario Van Peebles. Mario, what's happening? All right, we got Mario. Can y'all hear? Mario, can you hear me? All right, Mario, go ahead and talk, Mario. Let's see if we can get Mario. All right, so we dropped right there, and so we'll have Mario up in just 1 second. So we're redialing him as we speak. So first of all, we shot this a couple of years ago, y'all. And so let me tell you what happened. So Mario calls me. He's like, man, I got this movie role for you. And he says, I want you to play this politically conscious barber. So you're the one who everybody's going to be asking questions to, you know, whenever they defer to in the barber shop. I said, look, I just got one stipulation. He's like, what? I said, I got to wear an ascot and cufflinks. What? I said, I got to be clean. I said, I can't be a T-shirt wearing barber. And so I can't do it. And so I think we got Mario here. Mario, are you there?
Here's an ascot when they're
Mario Van Peebles, are you
man,
there?
Can you see me?
Now I see you and hear you. What's up, man?
I'm good, brother. I can't see you, but I know you're looking good.
So you're in the state of Washington right now. You were in Newark over the weekend, where Armed took home a big honor.
Yeah, man. Armed. You know, over the weekend, what happened was Armed played at the Newark Film Festival, and it was fun because it was real folks seeing it, Roland. It's not the little 1%, you know, film festival crowd. These were real people. They went in there, and they loved it, man. We had an overflow theater, so I think the theater was sitting 400, and then they had to put folks in another theater, but they loved it. and they really enjoyed your character. You know, the barber you play speaks some very poignant truth to power, just as you do in real life. And there's a couple scenes which I don't want to blow for the audience, man, but they really like the way you sum things up in your typical row fashion, man. So it was live, and consequently we won the audience award. So Armed won the audience award, and it's always nice when your own folks recognize you. You know, you're not looking for people that don't look like you to recognize you, but when your own people get it and go, that's making America think. And Roland, what I was interested in was it wasn't just the gun issues and you know, that whole thing that Armed deals with, but it was also folks coming forward and saying, we never see a brother that played heroically that is also battling a little bit of a mental illness too. So that was new for me to get that kind of response.
And for folks who don't know in terms of, you know, how these things are done, how many days did it take you to shoot this movie? I mean, you were pulling from here and here, and I was telling Spencer and Tiffany and Liz when we were trying to get you back on, where literally you hit me up. He was like, man, I got this role for you, and he was like, look, I ain't got much money, and I was like, and I was in between. I swear I was coming, I think, off of Essence, and then I was shooting the movie Downsizing, and I was like, Mario, I got 1 day. And so literally flew in, and so we're sitting there shooting, Tiffany, we're sitting there shooting the movie, and, you know, they taking, like, you know, this show live, okay? So when we go, we go. We ain't got it, we ain't got it. Right. And they would take another ticket. I was like, Mario, I got to get to the airport, bro. And I'm looking at my watch. He's like, Roland, I'm going to get you to the airport. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And I was like, Mario, I've got to get to this airport because I got a speech to give, and that's a check, Mario.
Yeah. No, I know,
make the flight,
brother. No, I know. Here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. You know, we go to the studios and we go to the system because we got to make our money and we got to make our paper.
Right.
But, you know, and I've always said there's movies that I want to make. I wanted to make Roots. I wanted to make the movies I've made for the studios, New Jack City, Posse, USS Indianapolis, all those, passionate about them. But every now and then there's a film you are compelled to make. And you go, there's too many of us dying with these gun issues. And there's too many things happening in the world to not try to wake America up a little bit, entertain them, but wake them up at the same time. And when you come across a movie like that, just the way my dad did Sweetback, it's about calling your friends, your family, people with political consciousness. So we had people on all sides of the issue. So we had Republicans, we had Democrats, we had some folks who still undecided. You know, they don't know what you know, and that's cool. They're purple or whatever. But it was not, you know, they say Hollywood's not just black or white, it's green, it's the color of money. But people like you came out to tell a truth. And it's landing. People, when they see Armed and it opens, you can buy tickets now because it opens Friday. When they see Armed, they're getting it. It makes a difference. When you see a film that it's made and it's not watered down, man, it's like you can give a thirsty man dying of thirst dirty water and he'll drink it. But when he gets clean water, he'll know the difference. And I think here, what I try to do is, whether you like New Jack or not, you'll remember it. Whether you like my film Badass or not, you'll remember it, and you'll remember the people in it. And Roland, trust me on this, whether you like Armed or not, or agree with it or not, you will remember it. People come out of this movie going, oh, hell, this was intense. And it is a crazy flick, brother. And you did your thing, man. Thank you for that.
You called lots of people: Earthquake, Paul Rodriguez, Columbus Short, Laz Alonso, Roxy Diaz. But you put a call out to a whole bunch of us and say, "Hey, come on, I need y'all." And so let me tell you also what's happening. So we're sitting here and we're on Mario because Mario also used his house to shoot the movie. So we're on his couch and we're going over lines. I'm like, I got mine. Now, you know I was going to ad-lib, too. So, you know, I was not going to, I don't just read from the script. And so Paul Rodriguez kept blowing his line. And so we're in the barbershop. Now, so we said, I'm like, Paul, your line is this, Paul. And it was like.
Remember that? Paul, I was like, what are you doing?
He kept blowing his line. And I was like, bro, I know your line. Come on, man. I got to go catch this plane.
I know. That was a good. But you know what also was beautiful? You have that situation, but then you also have like the chemistry that you and DC Young Fly, you know, struck up where it wasn't in the script anywhere where you were his uncle and he was the nephew. Right. But y'all struck up this thing and you're like, hey, leave my nephew alone, man. And it was beautiful. It really works because it feels like family.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I dig is that there's certain folks that it's almost like you meet him in this lifetime.